in for Laura Ingram, and this is a special edition of the Ingram Angle. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tonight, Maha battles with the liberal media.
One of the big mistakes that you and many other of your media colleagues made during COVID is to try to convince the American people that they should trust the experts.
Plus, can you hear me now?
You want to make that first? No, it's a phone call. You want okay, it's only a congressman.
Only a congressman. That was awesome. All right, and an Obama bro reveals while he covered for Joe Biden.
If Joe Biden is the candidate, I want him to win.
But first, the rogue resistance getting a workout. A federal judge today pausing the Trump administration's move to cancel Harvard's student visa program. This coming after Harvard sued last night over the policy. Obama appointee Judge Allison Burroughs granted its request for a temporary restraining order.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions. And they have $52 billion as an endowment. They have $52 billion. And this country's paying billions and billions of dollars and then gives student loans and have to pay back the loans. So Harvard's going to have to change its ways.
Why would you not want the best and brightest from around the world to
I do.
come to Harvard?
I do, but a lot of the people need remedial math. Did you see that? Where the students can't add 2 and 2 and they go to Harvard. How can somebody that can't add or has very basic skills, how do they get into Harvard? Why are they there? And then you see those same people picketing and screaming at the United States and screaming at, they're anti-Semitic or they're something. We don't want troublemakers here.
I mean, isn't that just common sense? Good old common sense? Now, this is all part of the president's crackdown on anti-Semitism on college campuses, and other schools better take notice.
Harvard brought these consequences upon themselves. They have promoted and allowed violent activity on campus. They have allowed anti-Semitism, participation with CCP and Chinese infiltration and influence on their campus, and they haven't protected their students. This should be a warning to every other university to get your act together. Get your act together, because we are coming to make sure that these programs, that you are facilitating an environment where students can learn, where they're safe, and that they're not discriminated against based on their race or their religion.
You heard her. Get her act together. All right, with us now, William Jacobson, law professor at Cornell University, and Roger Severino, vice president of domestic policy. Now, both are graduates of Harvard Law, so it makes this interesting. Roger, I want to start with you. So the federal government has broad authority over immigration and visa programs. So why did this judge issue this temporary restraining order?
Well, it's Trump derangement syndrome. We have this over and over again where district court judges want to take over the United States immigration system, the United States foreign policy, what's next, national defense, and they just are snapping to it's really because Trump is trying to enforce the law here. Students are here as guests from abroad. If they come here to not to learn, especially to do anti-American activity, and especially anti-Semitic violence, they do not belong here, and that's what this case is about.
No, absolutely. And Professor, I want to get you on this because it's not just these judges that have Trump derangement syndrome, it's also the Democrats in Congress as well. So Senators Markey and Blumenthal, well, they're very concerned about what will happen to poor little Harvard. Let's watch this.
This is authoritarianism on steroids. This is an attempt to intimidate universities across our nation. We have to fight every single day against this dictator.
Very serious escalation of pressure on Harvard of the most pernicious kind, because what they're doing essentially is using anti-Semitism as a pretext to crack down on Harvard's academic independence and freedom.
So, Professor, is this authoritarianism on steroids, or is he just standing up for Jewish students?
Well, I think he's standing up for our country more than anything, and Jewish students and other students on campus. The campuses have turned into riot zones. The campuses have turned into takeovers, and a lot of it is fomented by the faculty and by outside groups. And Harvard notoriously has failed to react to it. We remember how disastrous the prior president was in congressional hearings. And so there's a huge cultural gap that people are looking at in the country and saying, Harvard has turned into a bubble, which really in many ways opposes the country. And, there was a book written in 1978 called Harvard Hates America, and it's still true, and people sense it. And people say, Harvard can do whatever it wants, but we don't have to pay for it. That's the issue.
Roger, I want to get you on this as well. So I know that you were the director of the HHS's Office for Civil Rights during the first Trump administration. So now investigative findings from that office allege that Columbia's handling of student-on-student harassment of Jewish students over the past 19 months violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. HHS alleged that Columbia continually failed to protect Jewish students by allowing the hostile environment created by some of its students to continue. So what legal obligations does Columbia University have under civil rights laws to protect its students and prevent harassment?
If you receive federal funds, you can't discriminate, and you certainly can't create Jewish exclusion zones, as we saw with UCLA. A federal judge found that very recently. This is ridiculous. Campus after campus has declared no-go zones for Jewish students. And in the first Trump administration, we started the anti-Semitism efforts. This has been going on for quite some time. This is long overdue. And now you had the tragic murder of two people in DC because of their Jewish association, right? This is what happens when you have this fomenting of unrest, of dissension, calls for violence on these campuses. You start radicalizing people. We should not be funding these institutions. Harvard can do just fine with its $52 billion endowment. There shouldn't be the woke ideology being funded by the American taxpayer anymore, because people are being hurt. And in this case, anti-Semitic violence. In other cases, Asian students and white students were being barred from a quota system that Harvard imposed on admissions. And now the American people have said enough is enough with President Trump, and they're taking action.
Right. Professor, as Roger pointed out, in the backdrop of all these anti-Semitic protests and of that horrific murder of those two Israeli embassy workers that you mentioned, we see this activist Rebecca Jones speak out in favor of what happened 2 nights ago. Now, she was upset that the murdered man posted online in support of his own country. Watch this.
He was a monster representing a foreign adversarial government currently conducting a Holocaust, and they want us to feel sorry for him. Even if I hadn't looked at his profile, I would have said that representatives of a genocidal country should not feel safe in America, because we're supposed to stand in opposition to that. And now having seen it, good riddance.
Now, Professor, where is the line between free speech, hate speech, and incitement?
Well, people are allowed to say ugly things, they're allowed to say hateful things, as long as they don't act on it in a physical way. But what we've seen on the campuses is not speech. We've seen actions, we've seen intimidation, we've seen checkpoints, we've seen building takeovers, we've seen trashing of buildings, we've seen threats, and of course in DC we just saw an assassination. People need to understand that when they attack the Jewish students, when they attack when they engage in anti-Semitism, that is a reflection of a much deeper problem on the campuses. The guy from Columbia who's trying to be deported and he's fighting it, he ran a group whose stated goal was the destruction of Western civilization. In almost every one of these protests, when they burn an Israeli flag, they also burn an American flag. So what you're seeing on campuses at its core is anti-Americanism, anti-Westernism, which is playing out as anti-Semitism.
Well, and of course, when these students call for the global intifada or from the river to the sea, that's what they wanted. What happened in Washington, D.C. Professor and Roger, thank you so much. We appreciate your insight.